Hi everyone, I hope you had a great weekend. I just want to walk you through a couple of things that are due for this week and just kind of help you go through everything. I loved reading your comments so far and all of the writing on looking at sort of like how we frame poetry and our reading and writing of it. So I'm super excited for that. We're into week two, which is great. And I'll go through some of the assignments and prompts here with you just so you kind of have an idea. So we have our prompt one here. And for this, you have some different choices of looking at kind of what you want to do for this. It's just me reading this week, so soon we'll open it up into doing some peer review, but just kind of getting into it, as we write some of these poems. That's okay. Like, this is just for kind of me to give you some feedback on, and then we'll kind of work our way to sharing, which is a big part of that, obviously. So this is due submit to Canvas by the 13th. So you can see that on the prompt here. Hopefully you've been looking at it and you looked at it from the first week. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm really excited to kind of read and honestly just sort of get into it, start it, see what happens with it, and then you'll get some feedback. And I think that'll kind of help you as you work your way. So here's where you can submit that right here. And then we have prompt 2 that'll start up here. So you can look at these a little bit more for the due dates, and then focus on prompt 1 obviously first, and then obviously we'll work into prompt 2 after that. So don't worry about that quite yet. And you can find that sort of here as well. Also, don't forget you can go back and look at anything you need to up here as helpful information or anything like that from week 1. Okay, so finishing prompt 1 first, then we'll move on to prompt week 2, which is obviously going to take you into next week. I have lots of added resources up here, so I thought looking again at some of these poetry terms might be helpful for you because we're going to be using a lot of these just in our discussion of poetry and then also in our own writing as well. And plus, they're just good to have. Not only are all of these exclusive to poetry, some of these are just, part of literature as well. So it's good to have general knowledge of it. But when you're going through, these are sort of things I will also reference when we talk about poetry and when you're writing your own poetry as well. You will not obviously use all of these things. And certainly we, unfortunately, in 6 weeks can't dabble in all of them. But there's some things that, of course, like are so important to look at, such as repetition or rhyme or rhymed verse. Any of my Shakespeare people will know their sonnets, of course. How we talk about stanzas. So, how we talk about dividing poetry up by the lines. Is it a couplet, a triplet, a quatrain, a quintet? A verse is a whole metric line of poetry. And all sort of the kind of branches that come out after this. We talk about personification, and that's something we talk about a great deal in literature. Similes, metaphors, imagery, of course, and symbols. So a lot of these, like I said, I know you've heard of some of them before, but if you haven't or not exclusive to poetry, go through these this week because you're going to want to reference these quite a bit too, like when you actually do your more intense reading and writing of poetry. We've got some discussion boards this week. We have a writing exercise we're going to share. So here you have a little exercise. Try to record yourself. I know it's awkward, but if you do, you're going to actually hear yourself and see yourself better reading, and it is much better exposure to poetry here too. So I have a couple different prompts you can do with this here. You can kind of look at some of the examples. Again, it's just us in class. We're all practicing and we're all working with it together. So there's no judgments. There's nothing like that. And then we're going to start our analysis of some poems here. So like I said, one of the best ways to practice through the reading and writing of poetry is to look at so many types of it. And that's like so important for all types of literature in general. So I give you 3 poems here. You can pick 1 or 2 to break down, and just kind of like I do my sharing of notes and information here on Screencast-O-Matic. This is the tool that I use. Here's me going through a poem, and I use this as an example. And you can kind of do the same here and post it up. Mel already did hers, which was awesome. Yeah, like see what you kind of go with it. Again, don't worry about it being quote unquote right or wrong. Just look at your poem, get your analysis there, and then we're going to discuss and talk about each other's too. The more practice you get with reading and talking about poetry and literature as well, the more comfortable you get with it too. So I'm super excited. I also had, I mentioned this in last week's notes and things like that. I had other books I've used for poetry. Some of them are just they're great, but they're very, very expensive. So if there's something that you think you might really want, let me know. I can give you some recommendations. But these were some notes I had from another book that I used. And I think they could just also help you frame your conversations about poetry too. And again, extra resources are always good to kind of have with that. So I hope that helps. Looking forward to going through the materials in your first prompt this week and giving some feedback, and then we'll work our way to the next ones after that.